Just over a year ago, I picked up probably my greatest investment I've ever made, and that's the Sony A7IV. I was going from a Sony A6400, so by no means was this my first camera, and I must say this was a big leap going from the A6400 all the way up to a full frame A7IV. I was a little bit overwhelmed as there's so many settings to go through, there's more buttons, it's a bigger frame, a bigger system, everything just felt up to a whole nother level. But using the camera taught me patience and giving myself grace to learn how to use a camera to actually get better at creating content, whether it's taking photos or recording videos. It's quite ironic that getting a camera and using it more often taught me how important it is to spend more time not using the camera. Understanding the importance of pre-production, preparing, and also the importance of editing and post-production. When talking about the price, the A7IV is a pretty expensive camera. I've had it for a year, and when I first bought the camera, I believe I spent around £2,200. Editor here. So I actually found a photo from when I bought the camera, and I paid £1,949 back in July 2023. So that is actually a good price, to be honest. For the camera body and also the lens, I bought I don't know if they call it a combo kit. Just by chance I managed to see the camera on sale as someone had returned it at John Lewis, because why not? Although it was expensive, this price tag did make me a little bit nervous, as it's the first time I'm spending this much money on something that I perceived as just a hobby. Camera started as a way to capture my own world, but before I know it, I was capturing other people's stories. So this was almost like a statement, just agree that yeah, this is the right approach and the plan going forward. You never know what investment can actually change your life. And being honest with you, I've had this camera for a year, and I will say it definitely has changed my life. Now, to review the camera, when I say this camera is extremely versatile, I really do mean it. Not even that it's okay at doing photos and it's okay at doing videos. It really does shine in both aspects. Will I say it's the best at the Sony range? Absolutely not. But it is really good nonetheless. With this camera, I've taken it with me on trips to holiday. I've used it to record music videos. I've recorded corporate videos with this camera. I can list out the amount of things I've used it for, and every time the quality amazes me just how good it is. This camera is referred to as a hybrid camera, meaning that it's pretty good at both photos and videos. I'm fortunate enough to also have the FX3, which is designed as a video camera. Does it take better videos than the FX3? No, it doesn't. But I wouldn't say it's too far off. So the A7IV has a 33 megapixel sensor. This is quite good for a full frame camera because ironically enough, the FX3 only has 30 megapixels. But essentially taking photos is actually better on the A7IV compared to the FX3. And this is one of my favorite features about the camera. The photos look so professional, and it can clearly tell this was taken by a camera and not an iPhone. Not to say iPhone pictures are bad, but there's a clear distinction between an iPhone photo and a camera photo. The dynamic range allows me to capture so much detail in the shadows and the highlights. On the other hand, when it comes to video, the exact same story. A lot of the content I create is for social media, whether it's Instagram, TikTok or YouTube, and I can say I have had absolutely no problem in creating high quality content, both for myself and other people. The Sony A7IV really does shine in this area. So for anyone making Instagram, TikTok or YouTube content, I guarantee if you use the A7IV, your videos are really going to stand out and the quality is going to be very evident. However, there is one small little gripe I have with the A7IV, and that's the fact that 4K 60 is cropped. Again, that's me just picking at it, but that's actually the reason why I picked up the FX3, or at least part of the reason why I picked up the FX3. If you're interested in getting a deep comparison between the FX3 and the A7IV, drop a comment below and I'll look into making that video. The 4K 60 cropping isn't a deal breaker. It is something to consider when you're framing your videos. Know that this will actually affect the overall video. Nonetheless, you're still going to get some amazing videos. And most often cases, you're probably going to shoot in 4K 30 or 4K 24 anyway, so it's not really a deal breaker at the end of the day. The footage is really crisp, the colors are fantastic. I have the ability to shoot in log profiles, meaning I'm now able to color correct and then color grade my footage, leading to some really amazing content. Before I picked up the Sony A7IV, I had no idea about color grading, but this is something it's taught me and made me very conscious about when it comes to creating videos, understanding how to adjust and adapt your colors. When I talk about things I don't like about the Sony A7IV, I really am clutching at straws because there's so many great things about it. I honestly believe they actually outshine all of the bad things I'm about to tell you, which is a very small list. So one of the things I don't like about the A7IV, I mentioned 4K 60 is cropped. Another thing, it's actually a bit chunky and a bit heavy, but again, it's a good camera, so it comes with the territory. It does overheat. I have been hit with the overheat messaging on multiple occasions. So that's something that I found my FX3 doesn't do, but this does. And to be honest with you, that's really it. I mean, I can also complain about the fact that the accessories are quite expensive, but that's not really the camera's fault, or I guess that's a whole nother argument in itself. When it comes to the battery life, I found the battery lasts quite a significant amount of time. It's only on a few odd occasions where the battery's actually died on me. But when it's died on me, I always have like 3-4 to go. And I'll say in most cases of actual recording, the battery lasts maybe an hour to 90 minutes. And in the field, that's more than enough time. When I'm shooting longer form content, like a podcast, for example, I actually use a dummy battery, so it's not really a problem. However, that's when the overheating usually happens after I'm recording for that amount of time. Is it worth the money? To answer that question, it is slightly a little bit subjective. For my situation and my use cases, most definitely. The camera costs anywhere between £2,000 to £2,500 of dollars, depending on where you're from and where you buy it from. I always recommend to buy secondhand anyway, but let's assume you spend around £2,000 on just the camera body and maybe another £500 to £600 on the lens. Perceived as quite expensive, but when you start looking at the professional cameras like the FX3 or the Sony A7IV, those are way more expensive, and yes, of course, they are objectively better cameras, but this doesn't mean that the A7IV is a bad camera. So to actually answer the question of price versus value, I definitely do say the camera is worth the price, and the value it's given me is way worth it.
However, I will say, if you're just a beginner and on the fence about spending this much money on a camera, I would definitely recommend looking at something like the Sony A7IV. This is an APS-C camera, and don't get me wrong, it's a smaller sensor, doesn't mean it shies away from great quality.
If someone were to ask me what camera should I buy, in most cases I say your iPhone to begin with, but if you're looking to spend a bit more money and you've got a budget that allows it, I cannot recommend the A7IV enough. This really is a great camera, especially in that full frame price range. There are a bunch of cameras that are, yes, still quite good, like the A7S III, but that is slightly more expensive. And I actually would argue that the A7IV takes better pictures than the A7S III. I would recommend the A7IV to most people as a great full frame camera.